For the last 3 or 4 months, I've been trying to put together a lecturer's reflection on Pope Francis. I've got several things that I think are worth talking about, but I have not been able to distill that down to a 10-minute presentation. So I thought, well, I'm just going to break this up into smaller pieces. And I'd like to start tonight by talking a little bit about his views on economics, because I think this is an area where there's some talking past one another that goes on and some confusion. In the second half of the 19th century, there was, of course, a lot of industrialization, rapid urbanization, and with that came a number of new problems, or at least old problems to a greater degree. And so, in response to that, you got the socialists. And in response to the socialists, in 1891, Pope Leo XIII wrote an encyclical called Rerum Novarum, which sets forth a kind of Catholic vision of how the economy should operate, what the proper role of government is, that sort of thing. This is an oversimplification, but I think that it is kind of helpful. The capitalist says government should have a minimal role in the economy. Let millions of people go out and make their own purchasing and investment decisions, and then you will get an economy that's dynamic, it's efficient, profit motive will incentivize development of new technology, and so on. But that also leads to great stratification of wealth. You're never in a situation where everybody's competing on an equal footing. The old, the poor, the sick, just in a purely laissez-faire system don't tend to do very well. So socialism says, no, don't do that. The government should be very involved in the economy, owning outright or at least highly regulating businesses so that, in the interest of fairness and making sure that everybody's basic needs are met. Distributism is another way of looking at economic problems. It's about a way of framing economic questions in terms of ownership of productive assets rather than in terms of distribution of income. Distributism is rooted in the principle of subsidiarity, the idea that you want your resources and decision-making authority to rest as close to the ground as possible. Distributism argues that both capitalism and socialism result in great concentrations of wealth and power, and that great concentrations of wealth and power and attendant bureaucracy are undesirable whether they occur in the private sector or the public sector. So distributists want the government to be very involved in the economy, but not for the purpose of redistributing wealth, not for the purpose of just achieving an arbitrarily equal distribution of wealth. They want distributists want the government to be involved in the economy for the purpose of keeping the economy fragmented. If you go into Giant Eagle, for example, you go to the breakfast foods aisle, and you see all the choice. And I did not plan this. I am wearing my Count Chocula T-shirt today. I only realized that after the fact. You see all the breakfast cereals, and you think, well, isn't it great that I live in this country with a market-based economy, and I've got all this choice. But if you dig a little deeper, like 97% of the breakfast cereal market is controlled by 4 companies: General Mills, Post, Kellogg's, Quaker Oats. So whatever you buy, the money's going in one of 4 pockets. If you're a farmer, you have very few people to sell to. If you're a consumer, you have very few people to buy from. And when you have those kind of near monopoly conditions, markets behave in perverse ways. Competition doesn't work to keep prices low. You can have price fixing without actually having any kind of collusion. You just watch what your few competitors are doing. You need a certain level of competition in order for markets to work properly. So distributists look at situations like that, and they want to break up the big banks. They want to break up the big insurance companies. They want the government to use its tax spending and regulatory authority to create an intentional bias in favor of the small business, the self-employed individual, the family farm. Agricultural subsidies should go to the family farm and not to ConAgra or Archer Daniels Midland. That's a very distributist way of looking at things. Juan Perón, the longtime dictator of Argentina, was very much into this way of looking at and thinking about economic problems. And Pope Francis has publicly stated that he's an admirer of Juan Perón, who was, of course, the leader for most of the time that he was in Argentina. And I think that when he is critical of corporate capitalism, of profits, and so on, and then at the same time says he's not a socialist, that often leaves Americans kind of confused, or thinking that he's speaking in a way that's incoherent. And because distributism is not really a big part of our lexicon. It's not really part of the way we frame economic problems in this country. We're too used to thinking of, you're a socialist or you're a capitalist, and those are the only two choices. And so I wanted to take a little bit of time. This is a subject that's of great interest to me. And I feel like, what the Pope is saying is actually very much in line with the old encyclical, and Rerum Novarum, the encyclical, led to an effort on the part of European intellectuals to take Catholic social teaching and translate it into actionable policies. That's where distributism comes from. That's its roots. It grows out of Catholic social teaching. It grows out of this encyclical. And I feel like what Pope Francis is talking about economically is very much in line with this long Catholic tradition, but that individual statements get picked up in the media, and we're not used to thinking about economic problems in this way, and so there's a lot of maybe misunderstanding and talking past one another. So I wanted to talk a little bit about distributism this evening, because I think that helps put some of Pope Francis's comments on the economy into their proper context. And that's what I wanted to leave you, something to think about. Thanks.
Thank you.